Hello, everybody. So, today we are gonna do a reading passage. The title of this passage is Weathering in the Desert. So, we have total 13 questions, and let's start with the first 7 questions. The first 7 questions are: which paragraph contains the following information? And the first question is: the idea that crystalline salts may not disintegrate solid rock as easily as other substances. So this says that crystalline salts, they may not disintegrate solid rock, a rock which has no cracks, you could say that, as easily as other substances. So it could, disintegrate other substances very easily, but it cannot disintegrate that solid rock very easily. Okay, so this information is given in paragraph C. C is our answer. So let's find out where it is located in paragraph C. So this is the C paragraph. Let's read it from the very first line. The expensive action of crystallizing salts is often alleged to exert sufficient force to disintegrate rocks. So they are saying that whenever salts are crystallized, it is said that it has sufficient force that it can disintegrate rocks. Few would dispute that this mechanism is capable of disrupting fissile or well-cleaved rocks or rocks already weakened by other weathering agencies. So they are saying that, first of all, they said that crystallized salts can disintegrate rocks, but now they are saying that few people, they would say that the method, when salts are crystallized, it only disintegrates the rocks that are weakened, before only by other weathering agencies, or it could only disintegrate well cleaved rocks. So well cleaved means that the rocks that have, already cracks in it. So it could only disintegrate these types of rocks that have cracks in it, or rocks that are already weakened by other weathering agencies. Okay, wood is splintered, terracotta tiles disintegrated, and clays disturbed by the mechanism. But its importance when acting upon fresh and cohesive crystalline rocks remains uncertain. So whether it would disintegrate, in the same manner, it would disintegrate whether the fresh rocks, they are trying to say a solid rock which has no cracks in it. So they don't know that whether it would easily disintegrate that solid rock as it would, easily disintegrate the weaker rocks who have cracks in it. So it is not sure, it is uncertain. So from this C paragraph, we get an idea that yes, the crystalline salts may not disintegrate solid rock as easily as other substances, as easily as it disintegrates other weakened rocks. So this is how the answer came of the first question. Now let's proceed towards the second question. The fact that daily temperature changes cause rocks to weather may not be as important as supposed. So, there are daily changes in the temperature and it causes rocks to weather. This fact may not be as important as it is may not be as important as it is supposed. Now the answer is B. So let's find where it is written in paragraph B. From the first line, we start reading. The great daily changes in temperature of deserts have long been supposed to be responsible for the disintegration of rocks. So they are saying that the changes that are on daily basis happening in temperature, these changes are responsible for the disintegration of rocks, either by the differential heating of the various rock forming minerals or by differential heating between the outer and inner parts of rock masses. However, both field observations and laboratory experiments have led to a reassessment of the importance of exposure to sun's rays in desert weathering. So now they are saying that experiments, they have led to a reassessment that whether it is as important as it is supposed, or it is not as important as it is supposed. The importance of exposure to the sun's rays in desert weathering. So sun's rays, they are saying that temperature that is on daily basis, whether the sun is harsh or it is not. So almost half a century ago, Barton remarked that the buried parts of some of the ancient monuments in Egypt were more weathered than were those parts fully exposed to the sun's rays. Now you need to think it very carefully. So there are some ancient monuments, and some parts of these monuments are below the ground. They are buried, and some parts are above the ground, which means they are exposed to the sun's rays. Now when the daily temperature changes will happen, definitely the parts which are above the ground, as they are exposed to the sun's rays, only those parts will be affected by the daily temperature changes, and those parts which are below the ground, as they are buried inside the ground, those will not be affected by the daily temperature changes. Now if we see that which parts of those monuments were more weathered, were more disintegrated, they are saying that the parts which were below the ground, which means those parts which were not exposed to the sun's rays, which did not matter whatever the daily changes might be, they were not affected by those changes. Those parts which were buried, which were below the ground, those were more weathered than those parts which were above the ground, which were exposed to the sun's rays. So it means that daily temperature changes does not affect much as it is supposed, and attributed this to the effects of water absorption below the ground surface. So this is how the B paragraph came the answer of the second question, because it states that the fact that daily temperature changes cause rocks to weather may not be as important as supposed. Now the third question. The regions where weathering creates a thick layer of earth that water cannot penetrate easily. So in the F paragraph, it is. So they are saying there are some regions where weathering creates a thick layer of earth, and water cannot penetrate that layer of earth easily. Okay, now let's see in which regions this occurs. So here it is written, the development of relatively impermeable soil horizons that are subsequently exposed at the surface because of erosion of once overlying easily eroded materials, and which thus become surface crusts. Okay, so when the weathering takes place, erosion takes place, so there are some easily eroded materials, and these make surface crusts, which mean the crust is the uppermost layer of earth. So definitely it is a kind of layer of earth, and it is widespread in arid regions. So these are the regions they are talking about. These are arid regions where these thick layers of earth on the surface, they become. And although it is also known outside the deserts, and indeed many of the examples in arid lands probably originated in former periods of humid climate, the crusts prevent the waters of occasional torrential downpours. So downpour is a very heavy rain, from penetrating deeply into the soil. So these thick layer of earth at the surface which form, these prevent the water of the rain to penetrate deeply into the soil. So it is not very easy for water to penetrate these layers of earth, which are formed when weathering takes place in arid regions. So the regions are arid. So now let's see what's the fourth question. The fact that weathering not only breaks down rocks but also shapes the landscape. So weathering, along with breaking down rocks, it shapes the landscape. In D paragraph we will find this. In the very first line, weathering achieves more than the disintegration of rocks, which means it does the disintegration of rocks, but it is not the only thing that it does. Though this is the most important geomorphic effect, it causes specific landforms to develop. So along with disintegration of rocks, it causes specific landforms to develop. So we can say that this is the shaping of the landscape. Now let's see what's the fifth question. The idea of using impenetrable layers of earth to measure chronology. Okay, so the impenetrable layers of earth that we discussed, in the third question, that are formed when weathering takes place, those layers, those surface crusts are used to measure chronology. Chronology, you could say that it is the sequence in which a series of events take place, that dating back the time when it took place, like in order, that you could say what chronology is. So the answer is G. So let's see in G paragraph. So those layers, that we talked about, they are called Debris crust layers. Okay, surface crusts we talked about in F paragraph. And now in G paragraph, in the very first line, they are writing about Debris crust layers. So some Debris crust layers have been used as time markers. So they are used as time markers. It means they are used to measure chronology, because chronology is marking time, dating back to the time when uh, s- of when something is, for the landforms and geological formations, that when of what time period is this rock is, of what century it belongs to, like that time marker to measure chronology. So this is how the answer of the fifth question came. Now the sixth question is the two different kinds of weathering in rocks. So it is in the first paragraph, A paragraph. There are two different kinds of weathering. Yes, there are, because in the third line they are writing that weathering processes are either chemical, when alteration of some of the constituent particles is involved, or mechanical, when there is merely the physical breaking apart and fragmentation of rocks. So yes, there are two different kinds of weathering: chemical weathering and mechanical weathering. So in a paragraph it has been written. Now the seventh question: the possibility of using the color of the shiny surface on rocks to measure chronology. So on rocks, there is a shiny surface present, and by using the color of that shiny surface, the chronology is measured. So let's see, it is written in E paragraph. So, okay, in the first line, we start reading from the first line. Another superficial layer, the precise nature of which is little understood, is the well known desert varnish or patina, a shiny coat on the surface of rocks. So, there is a shiny coat on the surface of rocks, and it is called desert varnish, or you could say patina. Okay, I don't know the exact pronunciation of this word, patina or patina, whatever it is. And pebbles and characteristic of arid environments. Some varnishes are colorless, others light brown, yet others so dark a brown as to be virtually black. Its origin is unknown but is significant, for it has been suggested that the varnish grows darker with the passage of time. So they are saying that this shiny surface varnish, it grows darker with the passage of time. Obviously, before such a criterion could be used with confidence as a chronological tool. So, as it grows darker with the passage of time, we whenever we look at a rock, if its color is dark, very much dark, we can say that it belongs to a very old time. And if the color is, not as dark, or it is very light, we can say it is not very much old. So this is how this could be used as a chronological tool. So definitely it could be used, that color of shiny surface on rocks, it could be used to measure chronology. So now the first 7 questions are over. Now let's proceed to the questions 8 to 13. So these are true, false, not given. So, eighth question: desert rocks can become weathered when there is a chemical reaction within the rock. So, rocks can become weathered even when there is a chemical reaction happening within the rock. So this is true, because I think we have read it in first paragraph when we studied about chemical weathering and mechanical weathering. So yes, weathering processes are either chemical when alteration of some of the constituent particles is involved. So the particles of which the rock is made up of, when there are some changes, when those particles, constituent particles react with each other, then that is called chemical weathering, and this can also cause the rocks to weather. So definitely the answer of the eighth question is true. Okay, so ninth question. The parts of Egyptian monuments exposed to sunlight were found to be affected by the weathering more than those below the ground. This is truly false, because we have read it in B paragraph that the parts which were below the ground, that were buried, those were more weathered, not the parts which were exposed to sunlight. But in the question they are saying that the parts which were exposed to sunlight were found to be affected by the weathering more. They were more weathered, but it was not so. The parts which were below the ground, they were more weathered. So definitely the answer of the ninth question is false. Proceeding towards the 10th question, granite, which has been subjected to huge temperature swings, tends not to exhibit any signs of disintegration as a result. There is not a single mention, of granite in the whole passage. So definitely the answer is gonna be not given. It has not been mentioned that whenever there are large temperature changes, then it, does not exhibit any signs of disintegration. It has not been mentioned in the whole passage, so the answer is not given. Now, the 11th question. It is estimated that dark patina originated between 2000 and 5000 years ago. Okay, about patina, we talked about in E paragraph. So let's see what's there in E paragraph about its origin. Okay, so here we talked that it's called desert varnish or patina, shiny coat on the surface of rocks and pebbles. So some varnishes, or you could say some patinas, are colorless, others light brown, yet others so dark a brown as to be virtually black. So some patinas, they are colorless, some are, light brown, and some are so dark that they appear black in color. Okay, so its origin is unknown. So what they are saying, that the origin of these varnishes, origin of these patinas is unknown. So that is why, this is the reason why false is the answer of the 11th question, because in the question they are saying that it is estimated that dark patina originated between 2000 and 5000 years ago. But in the passage they are saying that nobody knows about the origin of these patinas. So how can they estimate in the question? So that is why the answer is false. Now some of you might get confused, because in the last lines of the E paragraphs, it is written that, its formation is so slow that in Egypt, for example, it has been estimated that a light brown coating requires between 2000 and 5000 years to develop. So now they are saying that a light brown coating requires between 2000 and 5000 years to develop. But in the question, they were not talking about light brown patina. They were talking about dark patina, which means that black patina. Okay. And a fully formed blackish veneer. Veneer also means like some kind of coating, you could say patina instead of veneer. So a black patina would require between 20,000 and 50,000 years to develop. So some of these students might, write false as the answer of the 11th question, because they might think that it was not between 2000 and 5000 years ago. A dark patina, a black veneer, it was, between 20,000 and 50,000 years ago. But it is not right if you put the answer false by thinking so. Although I know the answer is correct, but it would not help you in understanding the passage and in understanding how the answer came, which it is necessary, to score good in reading. It is very necessary to understand the passage very carefully in order to score good band in reading. So it would not help you developing your understanding. So that is why I am saying, and why it is wrong, because in the question they were talking about the origin, that when it originated, and here they are talking about how long it takes this coating, this dark coating to develop. So that is a different thing, that how much time it takes to develop, and its origin, when it was first originated, that is a totally different thing. So that is why you must not understand it like this and then put it false. You should clearly understand that its origin is unknown, and they are talking about origin. So that is the main reason why the answer of the 11th question is false. I hope that you would understand me and follow me. Okay, so now 12th question. Because of surface crusts, water from torrential rains cannot be fully absorbed into the ground, and as a result causes runoffs in arid regions. This we have read somewhere in the passage. Let's see. Yeah, it was in the F paragraph, because they were talking about surface crusts, and they were saying that the water from the occasional torrential downpours, which means the water from the torrential rains, it could not, sorry for this, it could not be penetrated deeply into the soil, which means it cannot be fully absorbed into the ground. Yeah, it is true up till until this, and as a result causes runoffs in arid regions. So this we have to confirm, because up to this we firstly also read, and we knew that it is true, and we need to confirm that whether it causes runoffs in the arid regions now, and thus they contribute to the rapid runoff associated with the desert storm. So yes, as a result there are runoffs, and in arid regions, where they were talking about this, in this whole paragraph they were talking about arid regions. So definitely the answer of the 12th question must be true. And now the last question of the passage. Dry crust layering is no longer used as an indicator of time because of the confusion with similar crusts. Now let's see why the answer is not given. We know that the Durae crust layering, uh, it was connected with the time marking in the last paragraph, that is the G paragraph. So let us read again. Some Durae crust layers have been used as time markers for landforms and geological formations. So they are saying that some Duracrust layers have been used. It means at some point in past they were used as time markers, as indicator of time, as a chronological tool. So they are talking about the past, that at some point in past they were used as time markers, as time indicators, because they have written have been used. Okay, but in the question they are talking about that Durae crust layering is no longer used as an indicator of time. In this paragraph they have not written that whether at present it is still used as an indicator of time or it is not used. So we cannot say that it is no longer used as an indicator of time. So that is the reason why the answer is not given. So I hope that you would have understand how the answers came off these 13 questions of the passage weathering in the desert. Still, if you have any doubt, you can just ask me in the comment section. So that's it for today. Have a good day.